Hello, hello, hello. Welcome into Dynasty Life. We are so excited to have you here with us today, Kendall, Valenzuela, and I'm so excited to be doing these shows now with Jake Trowbridge coming in here because Jake, the NFL draft is come and gone. There's no more mocks. We can't say our team's going to be amazing after the NFL draft because they're going to do everything right. We've got landing spots for these rookies, and now it's really just time to dive into Dynasty and what people should do over these next couple months. How you doing?
I'm elated that we've reached this point in the offseason. Look, fantasy for a lot of people, it's a sprint. For me, it's a marathon. I love this dynasty stuff, and I can't wait to see how far I can stretch those muscles this year.
And you were at the NFL draft, so you knew before anyone. You were like, "Oh, I've got the inside scoop." Did you overall? How were the rookie landing spots? I know we were talking before the show started, but overall, with these rookies coming in, just to set the stage, how excited or maybe not excited are you for some of these rookies?
For a lot of these guys, for real life, I'm thrilled. For a lot of them, for fantasy, it is a bummer. There were so many opportunities that felt like were on the horizon for us. That's the bad thing about the actual draft sometimes is we get these ideas in our head of, oh man, they could be anything. And then they go and get drafted by, the Browns. And we're like, we had a chance. And we lost it.
You and I are positive people though, so we're going to try and put a good spin on some of these guys, but we are reacting and we're excited. You guys can all go and check this out at fantasylife.com. We are reacting to Jonathan Fuller's latest rookie mock draft. So make sure you go over there, fantasylife.com. I will note this is assuming Superflex. So don't listen to this and say, wow, these guys are crazy taking Cam Ward where this is a rookie mock draft Superflex format. So we're going to continue on here and go through these picks, see if we agree. Maybe a little bit of disagreement here, I'm sure, is on the way. But let's get started with, I think, Jake, the one pick that is never going to be like more, it just feels right. This is the pick. This is the 101 for Dynasty rookie drafts this season. And if you have the 101, you are getting Ashton Jeanty, or on the other side of it, you're getting a haul for Ashton Jeanty and the people that want him. So he landed with the Las Vegas Raiders over the weekend, and that felt like the worst kept secret in the NFL. They knew that they wanted him. We've seen Pete Carroll kind of build around a backfield before. So even though this offensive line might not be amazing, you have to look at Ashton Jeanty and say, yeah, this guy's going to be good for a really long time.
Yeah, it's one of those things. We don't get a lot of sure things, especially in rookie drafts. But, I'm less sure that the sun is going to rise and set tomorrow than I am that Jeanty's going to come out and be a beast. And it might not be one of those things where year one, hey, he lives up to these, outrageous expectations that we have. But even guys not that long ago, like Bijan Robinson, came in and, of course, we just assumed top 3 finish from him. Well, there was a couple of minor roadblocks on the way to doing that, but it's not as if he was a disappointment. And I do feel like that's basically Jeanty's floor.
Yeah, he steps into this role too, where they're handing him the keys to the backfield. We can look at the depth chart and try again and say nice things about some of these running backs, but he has no competition there. And you now get into a Chip Kelly offense where I saw these stats floating around. With his NFL offenses, they finished top 11 in rush attempts all 4 years that he was in the NFL. So you have 4th, 7th, 11th, and 5th. And then in total rushing yards, his offenses have finished as high as number 1 in the NFL. So you've got this offense. They know that they have the talent. You still have Geno Smith over there. So I'm actually kind of excited, Jake, to see how this offense all comes together. We'll talk about, another one of their picks later in this draft. But Ashton Jeanty, what are you willing to give up for if you have the 101? I mean, you have to be getting really a haul to trade out of this pick, right?
You really do. And I'm going to have to reference right now, actually, a draft that I'm currently in, the exact same format, Superflex 12-teamer. This is what went down for the person that was looking to move Ashton Jeanty. This person got Bijan Robinson, who I just mentioned. They got CD Lamb. They got a future second pick for Jeanty, McLaurin, and a way distant future first rounder.
Whoa.
Like one that you shouldn't even consider at this point. So people are wanting him.
Oh my gosh, no kidding. I'd take that deal any day of the week, though. Bijan and CD, yeah, I think I'd take. You would take that deal every day of the week, Jake?
In a heartbeat. As much as I love Ashton Jeanty, and again, I talked about how he's a sure thing. Well, you're getting multiple sure things back your way as well. So absolutely worth it.
Yeah, and I've seen, things going around of what could his floor, what could the floor be if it's a disappointing rookie season. And the one that I've seen floating around that makes me excited is, maybe be like Bijan Robinson, which is still the floor for that was like 1,300 yards. It was crazy. It was an RB9 finish. So we're really excited here about Ashton Jeanty. You kind of all know if you're listening to this that he is the guy. You want to go and get him. So he is the 101, and we're kind of in lockstep agreement with this one. So let's continue on here. We're going to go over to the 102. And again, this is Dynasty Superflex here, Jake. So first quarterback off the board being Cam Ward. And I know you have your mock draft coming out on Friday. So everyone, again, can go and look at that, fantasylife.com. Highly recommend. So we're going to have a few differences here. But I know when we were talking, you have Cam Ward a little bit lower, even though it is Superflex. So what do you see in Cam Ward with this landing spot with the Tennessee Titans?
This is, I think, where the philosophy stuff really comes into play. Your individual strategy for how you operate in a rookie draft in Superflex. And yes, quarterbacks are massively valued. Some might even say overvalued in this format. For me, what worries me with Cam Ward just a little bit is it's still the Titans. Is there a chance that we get sort of a Baker Mayfield redo situation where, it took him, 6 years before he posted a top 12 fantasy finish? And it's not because he didn't have talent. It's not because he couldn't eventually get there, but, he was stuck in a pretty bad situation. I don't know that this is as bad as it was for Baker, but that thought does stick in my mind a little.
And this is one of the things where, unfortunately, Cam Ward could be, and this is why it's so different with the Dynasty approach than redraft. Like, we're probably not going to touch him in redraft. But for Dynasty, if you are a QB needy team, I can see you and it might be, to me, I'm looking at it, it might be a little rich at the number 2 overall spot, just because I do like some of the receivers more. Some of the running backs did land in really good spots. So I could see myself, talking myself out of it and saying, I don't really want to spend on Cam Ward here. There were also other quarterbacks that we're going to talk about that might have some potential to start this season too. But with Cam Ward, Jake, the one thing I look at is that, down the road, it could be good, but for the foreseeable future, until they really add to these pass catchers, I'm not really excited about this offense. And so you look at it, I know they added, Tyler Lockett, and as a Seattle Seahawks fan, obviously I'm really excited that maybe he gets a chance, but the offensive environment is not good. And so for me, if you are needy and at another spot in your draft, like wide receiver or especially running back, I might spend somewhere else at this pick.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And just a potential, if you do want to trade out of this pick as well, because you say, hey, I don't need a quarterback. Somebody might really want Cam Ward. Sam Wallace over at fantasylife.com did some pieces about specifically what you might be able to get from this slot, and looking at people like Bucky Irving, T. Higgins, Xavier Worthy, plus, right? You can get those guys, and then you can also ask for something else on top of it, maybe just move further back into the draft to where you're more comfortable, where some of these great running backs are going to be that we'll be talking about. That's an option.
I like it. But again, until, I don't know. And I do believe in Cam Ward as well. Like, he can turn around the Tennessee Titans. It's not going to be this, Will Levis thing. That experiment was fun. Maybe not for Tennessee Titans fans, but for us watching, we were like, oh, maybe there's some hope there. But Cam Ward definitely brings hope to this team. So if you're willing to wait on that, and you have the luxury of, drafting a quarterback right now in Dynasty and seeing how it plays out, I think it's still a good overall strategy. Let's go over to the 103 here. So we've got running back, quarterback off the board, and we go over to another running back in Omarion Hampton here, Jake. He was drafted to the Los Angeles Chargers, so it was fun while it lasted to have the Najee Harris hype. I was hand up. I was one of them. I was like, listen, if they can get out of this draft with, a day 3 pick, Najee's there, we knew that wasn't going to happen, but it was still fun to think about. And it is really exciting to see Omarion Hampton in this offense. To me, Jake, I don't think that Najee Harris is completely going away. So this is a way better Dynasty pick than redraft for this season, because Jaylen Warren, Najee Harris, for all that it's worth, he's never missed a game in his career. And then he's put up 4,000 yard seasons. So we know he's durable. So I think Omarion Hampton is going to come in, is going to get work, but I can't necessarily see Najee Harris going away.
Yeah, and the temptation here is to look at this and maybe do a too easy comparison and say, well, Najee Harris is just this year's Gus Edwards, right? People got hyped up about Gus Edwards last year coming into the season with that Harbaugh Roman offense. Again, I let myself fall victim to it a little bit as well. And then J.K. Dobbins comes in, and when healthy, it's the J.K. Dobbins show. Now, that's too easy because Najee has proven himself to be a more capable pass catcher than Gus Edwards ever was. And I don't think, he's certainly younger than Gus was as well. So to your point, an even split or maybe even slightly favoring Harris in this first year, it's definitely on the table. The good news is Harris's contract is for 1 year. So come this time next season, we should be right on track for him.
Yeah, and that's why I say, like, hey, redraft best ball. I'm like, oh, okay, this is fine. But for Dynasty, I'm excited because, like you said, the path is right there. Najee Harris only has that 1 year kind of prove it deal. And for him in the supermodel, like, Jake, I wouldn't be surprised if we were sitting here, towards the fantasy playoffs and Omarion Hampton was helping you, be a league winner. Like, he was going into those, top 10 running back ranks for the rest of the way. Like, I can see it happening sooner rather than later, but especially in the fantasy playoffs, when we know these rookies really start to catch their stride towards the middle of the season back half, like I won't be surprised if we're sitting here talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, that round one draft capital alone gives you the assurance that, like, no matter what, sometime this guy is here because the hit rates are just off the charts for those guys. And yeah, wouldn't it be nice to have him win your Dynasty championship right around that time?
Right. But at like first season, I'll be insufferable. I'll let everyone know that, oh yeah, this, he helped me right away this first season. So long-term, still a good bet, but I did really like this Omarion Hampton pick there for the Los Angeles Chargers. So next up, we've got our first wide receiver that we get to talk about, and it is Tetairoa McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona, landed with the Carolina Panthers. So this is the 104. And I like this. I love this Tetairoa McMillan landing spot because Jake is this big-bodied ex-receiver, right? And we have to look at it and say, okay, it is the Carolina Panthers, but what do we chase in fantasy? It's always the volume. He is going to just be peppered with these targets, and he's going to have this target share that we don't want to look away from. I know that they added Hunter Renfrow, so I have to give some respect to Hunter Renfrow there, but the receiving room is not scary at all. So to me, Tetairoa McMillan, not only long-term, but you could see him have an impact for your team this season.
Absolutely. And I think, he's certainly the most trustworthy wide receiver when we're talking, I think, both short and long term for dynasty purposes. And people seem to forget Bryce Young's rookie season. It's not as if this man did not deliver. Adam Thielen, 33-year-old Adam Thielen, had that first, I don't know, whatever it was, 6-week stretch into their bye week. He was the wide receiver too. But then, Father Time kind of caught up to Adam Thielen. That's not his fault. But Bryce Young and company, they can support a high-end wide receiver. So I don't want people to sleep on Tet for this season either. I don't know how high I'm going to be willing to take him in redraft, but he's certainly not off the board just because it's the Panthers.
Are you worried at all about Bryce Young? Because I have seen those arguments back and forth. Like, okay, what if Bryce Young doesn't have a good season? What if we get the first half of Bryce Young before he was benched instead of the last half of the season where he was really good? He was helping him win games. You could tell he was having more fun. Does that, push you away from Tet McMillan at all with this pick?
I'm still going to stay sturdy with him for dynasty purposes and just say, look, if I don't get what I want in year one because Bryce Young isn't where we want him to be, well, next year there's probably going to be a change of scenery for Bryce and they might be bringing somebody else in. So I'm still going to choose to believe in the talent. And I think the overall situation there is set up more likely than not to benefit him.
I hope, come on, Bryce Young, we're cheering for you. We need you for every type of fantasy purpose that you could think of. We need you to do good this season, to do well this season. So please do that. Tetairoa McMillan coming off the board though, 104, which again, I like that. I think that's a solid pickup. Now the big question here, Jake, is Travis Hunter. and what you expect from him in his rookie season. So 105 in Dynasty rookie in this rookie draft right now from Jonathan Fuller. Again, you can find it at fantasylife.com. And I could see it go either way. I can see people say, I do not want to risk the 5th overall pick in my Dynasty rookie draft. We don't even know if he's going to really play 50, if it's going to be a 50-50 split, if he's going to play more as a receiver than a cornerback. So really, how do you calculate this pick with Travis Hunter, and how do you assess the risk reward?
It's going to be hard to click the draft button. It just is. I would say for 99% of people, even the ones who really love Travis Hunter. I mean, I was on with you and Thor Nystrom just about a month ago before the draft, and I remember just losing it that Thor was willing to take him at 106. At that point, it just felt way too rich for my blood. But I'm coming around to the idea, look, you want a home run hitter. You don't want to play it safe. The ceiling is the freaking Sistine Chapel for this guy. So the risk is worth that reward. So I have to have my own Michael Scott moment of, how the turntables have for myself, because I'm on board with him now. But let's say that you aren't fully committed. I do want to throw this out there. There was a league of mine, again, this same league I just referenced. I actually did trade away what was going to be Travis Hunter, packaged him with Drake May to get Josh Allen and use that as an upgrade, because the people who love Travis Hunter really love Travis Hunter. So I would recommend to folks, use that as leverage. That's kind of the nice thing about such a polarizing prospect, is there's going to be people who are just over the moon with him.
Okay, I like that. Wow. First of all, everyone listen to Jake, because if I can package that and somehow turn it into Josh Allen, again, I do that every day of the freaking week. But I agree. And I actually do like this Travis Hunter pick right here, because to me, you're right. It's fully risky. And we know that right now, especially Jake, if you're drafting right now, because if you have the luxury of waiting for a little bit and getting more information out of the Jacksonville Jaguars, that's probably the first best step. If you don't, after they drafted him, they did say that they expect to play Travis Hunter on offense and on defense. They're onboarding him by giving him a heavy dose of the wide receiver position, but he is still going to be playing his more natural position on defense. So we just have to wait for the breadcrumbs if you can. If you can't, I think the risk definitely outweighs everything, or I think the reward definitely outweighs the risk here, because with Travis Hunter, he's going to continue to get more expensive as the months go on. And when I look at what Dwayne McFarland has projected for him, like his floor it's not great, right? 98 targets, 66 receptions, 809 receiving yards, but that is the absolute floor. That is the 50% route participation. If they give us information that he's going to have more than that, then we can expect a lot more, because he was the best. He's like one of the best top receivers in rookie supermodel history. So I don't know, Jake, I want a piece of it. And then, if it doesn't work out, we can just say, well, we were betting on the talent. But I think I'm going to bet on the talent here almost every time.
Yeah, scared money don't make money. Just ask Amanda Kuderdoodle about that. So there's a lot of ways for this to play out poorly, and I don't want to undercut those. But again, sometimes you gotta jump in with prospects like this.
And Trevor Lawrence, by the way. Do you think because there's so many other things going on here, because now they have a new, Liam Cohen is now their new head coach. James Gladstone, the second youngest GM in NFL history. He obviously made big swings during this draft to go and get Travis Hunter. Are you on board with Trevor Lawrence being someone that could really take a step forward in 2025?
I'm still very cautiously optimistic. Because yes, he does have all the playmakers. He has Brian still from last year, and that's great. Way to go, Brian. And now he has Travis Hunter in the mix, added some fuel to the backfield. The pieces are still there. I do worry sometimes about quarterbacks who undergo so many transformations season to season, so many different coaches, so many different offensive coordinators. And even though this one should be a benefit to him, still sometimes gives me a little bit of pause.
Yeah, I'm with you right there. But he was this generational talent, right? It feels like he eventually or hopefully has to live up to the expectations that were given to him when he went in the NFL draft. So here's hoping that it's this season, because he does have, we're going to talk more about this team, but he does have the weapons around him to be able to succeed, especially if Travis Hunter is on that side of the ball. Maybe 75% of the time could be great for us. Moving right along, we're at pick 106 here with Quinshon Judkins. And I kind of wanted to couple these two together. Quinshon Judkins going over there to the Browns, and TreVeyon Henderson is the next pick, which you can see on your screen right here with 107. I feel like these are going to be the guys that go back and forth a lot with people. You know, some people might say, hey, I like TreVeyon Henderson a little bit more, but let's start with Quinshon Judkins in this landing spot because, Jake, this was, again, one of the worst kept secrets. We knew Jerome Ford wasn't going to be the only one in this Browns backfield, or at least we were like, yeah, that's probably not going to happen. So with Quinshon Judkins in this landing spot, how much work do you think he's going to get? Is it going to be worth it to take him at this pick at 106?
Overall, I think he's absolutely going to lead this backfield. It's not a question of Jerome Ford being the one or even the 1A for me. It is Quinshon Judkins. The questions centered around him are more, is it going to be purely rushing attempts? What's he going to actually see from a target share perspective? All these concerns are still Nick Chubb-esque, which he's essentially Nick Chubb's replacement. He's been comped to Nick Chubb coming in. Chubb was never a guy that was going to see, 60 targets a season. So you had to rely on ultra efficiency and just purely rushing touchdowns. Now, in the short term, I'm worried about the touchdown upside for Judkins because of that team situation. I think long enough, though, if they can sort out the quarterback situation, whether it's this year or next, Judkins is going to pay off because I don't think he's going anywhere.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Nick Chubb role as well, because it just feels like I talked just a couple weeks ago on SiriusXM with Zach Jaxson speaking about the Browns. He's their beat reporter for The Athletic. And he was like, listen, Nick Chubb is probably, on his way, mentioned that they're probably going to obviously go get another quarterback, which they did. But Nick Chubb's role, while you can't replace Nick Chubb from what he did, maybe not last season, but, the early years of Nick Chubb that we absolutely loved, that's exactly the role that I see him going into. And then, of course, stealing the opportunities from Jerome Ford as well. So I just think you can expect, RB2 numbers from him when you look at it. And I think as at Dynasty, and that's my other question when we go into the 107, I can see, and I might be one of them, where if you just look at the Patriots and you look at TreVeyon Henderson, I might like him a little bit more than Quinshon Judkins just because of the offense. There's a little bit still of risk with TreVeyon Henderson, though. Just, again, it's the same conversation we had with the Chargers. I don't necessarily think that Ramondre Stevenson's going to go away, Jake, but I'm curious how you're looking at TreVeyon Henderson in this backfield and if, you like him a little bit more than Quinshon Judkins for 2025.
Yeah, these two players, the debate between Judkins and Henderson, I think comes down to what do you prefer? Do you prefer stability? Do you prefer upside? Because there's a lot of stability to Judkins, not so much with Henderson right now. Because to your point, they extended Ramondre Stevenson. They saw what we all saw, some errors in pass blocking, some issues with fumbles. And they said, that's fine. We're going to give you a big contract anyhow. So I think that people are overlooking what Ramondre is going to do. Now, with all that said, Henderson isn't a guy who needs to see 70% of the backfield touches in order to pay off for you for drafting him. He's a little bit more of the Jahmyr Gibbs type, right? Where it's like, that's fine that there's a David Montgomery over here. We understand that he's not going to get all of the work and all of the touchdowns, but it should still be okay. So yeah, for me, I think I would chance it with the upside of Henderson.
Yeah, and let me just say this, Henderson caught 46 passes over his final 2 seasons at Ohio State. He can operate, as one of these matchup targets for Drake May, who, again, I'm more betting on the stability at quarterback at that position. They know that they're in this window, the Patriots are, where they need to get the most out of Drake May that they can while he's on this rookie contract. So I look at that stability at quarterback and just overall offense, and I say, okay, I might want a little bit more of TreVeyon Henderson. But again, it just, like you said, all comes down to preference. I just can see both of these guys kind of flipping between Judkins and Henderson here. But I do, for all that it's worth. And the thing is, too, they have a new offensive coordinator in Josh McDaniels, and he has a history of utilizing this committee, Jake. That's the other part of it, where according to PFF, 18 years for him as a head coach or offensive coordinator. There's only been 1 season where the running back leading the team in carries was also the back receiving the most third down snaps. So he's always been like that. So that's why I'm saying I do still think that Ramondre is just always going to be there. But we've always called that in fantasy.
True. And the good news, at least from the Josh McDaniels perspective, is yeah, he is very frustrating about splitting work with these guys. At least his rushing offenses in total have always been very good. Almost
True.
always in or near the top 10 in terms of overall rushing attempts. So it's like if there's going to be a split backfield, you at least want the one with a chance for both guys to have a payout here. And I do feel like, Henderson's going to get all the glory. Hey, maybe for redraft purposes, go ahead, take Stevenson towards the back half of drafts and just see what happens.
Do you want to know Henderson's projections, by the way? They're pretty gross.
Please.
But again, it's the
Absolutely.
floor. It's pretty disgusting, though. 715 rushing yards. He's got him with Dwayne McFarland, by the way. This is Dwayne McFarland's projections. Has him with 50% of the rushing attempts going to Stevenson, 35% going to Henderson.
I have a bone to pick with Dwayne now. Why did he have to put that negative vibe out into the ether? That's what I want.
I know. I said, listen, we booed him off the Fantasy Live show over the weekend, Ian and I was like, no, please don't do this right now. But the other side of it is that he has him for 27 receptions, a little over 200 receiving yards. So again, I'm more betting on the talent, I think, when we look at TreVeyon Henderson, but he's definitely someone I'm taking a look at here at this spot for sure. Another quarterback. Okay, I do need your thoughts on this because this is where things start to go south. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm willing at the 8th spot in a Dynasty rookie. It is Superflex draft, though, to go Jaxson Dart. He went over to the New York Giants. Now you have a quarterback room with Jaxson Dart. You've got Russell Wilson. You've got Jameis Winston. Are you willing to take Jaxson Dart and just believe, Jake, that he is eventually going to be the starter this season? Because I do believe that, Russell Wilson will probably start. Then Jaxson Dart comes in. I don't know about it. What do you think here?
I'm willing to draft Jaxson Dart. I don't think I'm willing to draft him quite here because there's a couple of players where I look at it and go, I know it's quarterbacks. I know it's Superflex. Yes, the risk is low for that reason. They tend to sustain value for a decent chunk of time, even when they're not starting as a rookie. To me, it does shake out maybe a little bit like the Michael Penix situation of last year. We knew Penix was coming in. They just spent a bunch of money on Kirk Cousins. Now, they spent less money on Russell Wilson and Jameis, but they spent a little less draft capital as well. So, I don't know that I'm committing to him starting in year one, but I'm okay drafting him because I don't think everybody's expecting that will happen. So folks should be lined up in year two once Russell and Jameis are gone to say, oh, right, that guy. And at worst, hopefully you can retain that value. But again, for me, that's like way back half of first round, not quite here.
Yeah, I'm thinking a little bit more towards the end of the first round. I could see it because I don't think he makes it past anyone going into the second round. If you're doing a rookie, Superflex draft, that's where I can see him, back half, maybe at the turn. But there is still some risk, right? But people know that. I think you're just gambling that he is going to be their starter eventually and then keep that job. But I don't know, Jake, this whole team is crazy. First of all, he was comped to Daniel Jones, so they obviously have a type, which is crazy that they went for the next Daniel Jones and Jaxson Dart. And then this whole coaching staff, that's where I get a little bit worried is like they're all on the hot seat going into 2025. So if things don't work out, what does that mean for potentially, unless they really start winning games, potentially a whole new coaching staff coming in and looking at them and saying, oh, you've got Jaxson Dart. We again might want to just totally start over. I don't know. It's still risky.
So look, some people might look at some mistakes and then learn some lessons from those mistakes. The Giants aren't those people. So we just have to live with the aftermath of that. The fact that they said, no, we saw what you saw with Daniel Jones, but we think we can just try it again and re-roll the dice and everything will be fine. But at least that he is coming in to a team that has Malik Neighbors. So if nothing else, he's set up for more success from that standpoint.
You're right. That's true. Jaxson Dart, listen, we're cheering for you. We do want you to succeed, please, because that would be good for us dynasty managers and everyone else in redraft who might take you, depending on what kind of format you're playing in. Let's continue on here, Jake. We actually are going to do a Supermodel spotlight here presented by DraftKings. All right, Supermodel Spotlight presented by DraftKings here. Jake, I'm ready to dance. I'm ready to keep going with the music. I mean, we've stepped it up. So here's the Supermodel Spotlight presented by DraftKings. And we have to talk about Emeka Egbuka because I was, Jake, so sad. I was so sad when they say, hey, Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on the clock. You know who we're going to go and get? Emeka Egbuka. Because for everything that we saw in the rookie supermodel over at fantasylife.com from Dwayne McFarland, he was, and he is, he's still going to be amazing, but it now might take a little bit longer since he's in a backfield with not only Mike Evans, but you got Chris Godwin, who they say is on track to play in week 1, but giving you these stats. Since 2018, 24 prospects have rated between 75 and 85 in the rookie supermodel. Half of them have posted top 24 campaigns in their first 3 seasons when you look at it. So top 12 finishes at 16%, top 24 finishes at 50%, top 36 at 58%. His closest comps in the supermodel were JSN, Brandon Ayuk, Christian Kirk, but this feels like, Jake, the worst landing spot you could have gotten. When we look at the rookie supermodel, Dwayne said, hey, borderline wide receiver 2, sliver of wide receiver 1 upside with the perfect landing spot. And this is the opposite of a perfect landing spot for Emeka Egbuka.
It's not good for the short term. I won't sugarcoat it. There's about 20 teams that he could have went to where they announced his name, and we all got so excited for him. Year 1, redraft, Emeka Egbuka, darling. It didn't happen. He went to the Tampa Bay Bucks. I do want to call back to his comp that you just mentioned, though, Jaxson Smith-Njigba. I don't want to scare people away from Egbuka. It's a very similar situation. He was drafted onto a team that already had DK Metcalf, that already had Tyler Lockett. We got bummed for JSN as well for similar reasons. A year later, with those 2 guys still on the team, he's crushing it, right? He's getting 100 targets. Yep. He's seeing 1,100 yards. He's now the default guy, sort of the alpha on that team right now. I don't want to just say it's cluttered, so this stinks. For a redraft, it does. For Dynasty, I'm still going to be willing to draft him and just wait it out and see if he has that JSN kind of trajectory.
Same here. I was going to say, you know, for all the bad things that I just said of like, hey, he's got Mike Evans, he's got Chris Godwin. Mike Evans is going into the final year of his contract. Chris Godwin, that's what confused me more is that they just gave him that 3-year extension. So again, he's going to be there, but I'm watching out for these 2 guys. We never want injuries, Jake, but if there was an injury to either one of these guys during the season, you would immediately see Emeka Egbuka just vault up into our fantasy rankings. Like he would just be such a big riser. And so for me in Dynasty, I honestly think he might be gone by the 9th overall pick in Dynasty drafts. I would be willing to take him maybe if you don't need immediate help at your wide receiver position and you can wait a year and say, all right, I'm just going to wait this one out. I could see myself, you know, taking him right after we just talked about Travis Hunter. If you need a wide receiver, if you have the time to wait, I could see him going at the 6th overall pick instead of 9th.
Yep. This is one of those, are you a contender or are you in full build mode kind of picks? And I think that the rebuilders are going to be a lot more excited to draft Egbuka than the contenders are. But like you said, hey, injuries do exist. Both of those guys are old and or coming off of injuries. So I don't think that the short term should be glossed over either.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield QB1 finish incoming. Like he just has so many weapons, Jake, that it's like, what are we doing over here? This is an offense. This is a piece of an offense that we actually want, which, you know, years ago, if you told me that Baker Mayfield would be the star topic of conversations, I would have said you're a liar and I would have bet against you. But here we are talking about Tampa Bay like that. So Emeka Egbuka, while not a great landing spot, go and check out the rookie supermodel because he really did grade out as one of the better wide receivers in this draft. So there is hope there. Just maybe not in the short term, but the long term for Emeka Egbuka. So that was the Supermodel Spotlight here presented by DraftKings. All All right, basketball fans, we've seen some incredible action on the court at the start of the NBA playoffs. The games are getting even more intense, and with so many high stakes matchups ahead, you won't want to miss out. Right now, you can get in on the action with my partners at DraftKings Pick 6, a fresh, exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All new customers who play just $5 will get $50 in Pick 6 credits to keep you in the game. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and sign up with the code Fantasy Life to claim your offer. This is your shot to level up your NBA experience only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. All right, Jake, continuing on here, we're going to the 10th pick in this rookie draft. Again, this is from Jonathan Fuller over at fantasylife.com, who does an incredible job. So make sure you go and check that out. This is Superflex format. You've got yours coming on Friday, Jake, as well. So we'll continue to debrief and kind of go through picks that maybe you'll give us a sneak peek of your mock draft and tell us who you like, who you maybe don't like in this draft. But RJ Harvey to the Broncos was probably one that we circled immediately when we saw the Broncos. We said, hey, any running back that they take, we're probably going to want a piece of in any type of, fantasy format going into 2025. Feels like he can be an immediate contributor, Jake. I'm not going to count out Audric Estime stealing just a little bit of work because it feels like, he's still going to be involved. Maybe a little bit of Jaleel McLaughlin, but more Audric Estime in my eyes. Do you like this pick right here with RJ Harvey going to Denver?
I love it. If it wasn't Denver, it was Chicago. Those are the two backfields where I just go, like you said, I'm going to highlight this name and I'm going to be prepared to slot it in somewhere in the first round. And I do think that this is about the appropriate spot for him. Again, probably a little team dependent, but Harvey, I don't know. Has there ever been a coach that's had more of a distinct, like, these are my guys kind of vibe than Sean Payton? Because with Harvey and with Pat Bryant later on, wide receiver, like, these guys just feel exactly tethered to Sean Payton, for better or for worse. Now, he's had guys that he's drafted in the past, and they don't always hit when they're of this particular type. But I look at what he did with Bo Nix last year, obviously a totally different position, but I was kind of underrating Bo Nix. I kind of thought Sean Payton was the only coach in the NFL that would even draft Bo Nix in the first round. It obviously paid out. He has a very clear idea for these guys, so I'm excited to have that on my team.
I love this pick. I mean, and he's a skilled pass catcher, which, again, you said it, Jake, but this is one of the biggest Sean Payton picks ever, where you just look at him and that, something that Sean Payton likes to do is create a lot of things for his running backs, especially, catching passes. So that's the one thing with Harvey, where you look at, what Thor Nystrom wrote about him, and he caught at least 19 balls with at least 1.25 yards per route run each of the last 2 years he was in college. So like I said, Sean Payton creates more targets for his running backs, and we shouldn't expect that to go away, especially now that you have such a threat with RJ Harvey. So, and this is an offense that did, for what it's worth, way better than I expected last season, with Bo Nix and everything else. So hopefully RJ Harvey continues to open up this offense, and it'll be great for Bo Nix over there. I like him at the 10th. I like him at the 10th spot there. One that maybe, Jake, we don't like, at least for landing spot, Colston Loveland. This does feel like another conversation where we're going to have to look at Colston Loveland and say it's not going to be necessarily immediate, but he did go to the Chicago Bears, and Jonathan Fuller has him off the board at the 11th overall pick in this rookie mock draft. And it just, again, same thing, Jake. It might take a little bit, but he still could, give you so many rewards if you do draft him.
Yeah, I think we have to look at this and say, do we believe enough in the talent? And do we believe enough in the team that drafted him to know that they have an obvious game plan for him and for Cole Kmet? And I do believe that 12 personnel is going to be a very popular feature in that Bears offense this season, maybe to the chagrin of another guy that the Bears drafted later on that we'll talk about. But I do think that Colston Loveland, ranking 5th all time in Dwayne's Supermodel amongst tight ends, has to count for something. And I do think that, again, if we just go on talent and talent alone and disregard this very recent thing of tight ends crushing it in year one, just put yourselves 5 years ago and pretend that it's then. We weren't expecting rookie phenoms to come out of the tight end department. So that's how I'm going to choose to treat Colston Loveland here. and just know that, hey, in year 2, year 3, the payout should be there.
It should be. And you just have to wait. I'm with you on betting on the talent because Colston Loveland, I mean, he was the first tight end taken off the board during the NFL draft. And so there's something to that. But there's also something to Cole Kmet still getting the 4-year, $50 million extension from Ryan Poles. Like, we have to watch that as well. And it doesn't look like when you look at that contract, they can get out of that until 2026 at the earliest. So the path is there. I always like to say that. The path is definitely there for Colston Loveland. I do like this pick if you do not need immediate help at the tight end position. He's still going to do well, but you shouldn't expect him to get the 70, 80% route rate that we might have expected him to get if he was on any other team. So that's the only thing with Colston Loveland, unfortunately. And feels like the same thing. We can copy and paste this conversation, maybe, Jake, for the 12th overall pick going to Luther Burden, because again, super talented wide receiver. I know people might have looked at his game and not liked him and said, oh, well, he's this gadgety wide receiver. You know, he's not going to be very good in the NFL. I beg to differ. But when you go to the Bears and you still have DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet, I mean, this is a super fun offense for just regular NFL terms. But for us in fantasy, again, Jake, this is one dynasty-wise, you might have to wait to get something out of Luther Burden.
Yeah, and it's such a bummer. I do think that there's a path towards, like, there's going to be some games where he pops off, probably because of how well accustomed he's been to getting so many touches behind or at the line of scrimmage. Now, I remember back last year, they tried this with Rome Odunze, and it did not work out. I don't know if there was a single play where they tried some of the gadgety manufactured stuff for him, and it just didn't work. That's not what Rome Odunze is going to do for this team. So those touches could certainly go his way. He'll see, I don't know, maybe 400 to 500 yards in his rookie season, and that feels like where I'm capping him. For long term, it's really going to depend, I think, on how well Odunze does. You know, does he continue to progress at all over these next couple of seasons? If not, then I think Burden's path is much more wide open.
And I think that's the bigger conversation, right? Because I had a ton of Rome Odunze last season, just, again, betting on the talent that he had and also betting that Keenan Allen wouldn't necessarily have as big of a season as he did last year, or was at least the thorn in fantasy managers' sides. But, you know, there is, when you look at Odunze, I mean, Burden could leap him and take the number 2 role. That is something that could happen, especially if Odunze, you know, opens the season, the first few weeks is just not good, doesn't live up to the expectations. But for right now, like you said, Jake, I mean, for Luther Burden, we have him at fantasylife.com, 71 targets, 46 receptions, 556 receiving yards for the season. So that just comes out to about 110 fantasy points for the year.
Not great, Bob. Not what anybody signed up for Luther Burden.
It's okay. But again, more long-term. See, now we're doing the positive thing where we just say, hey, this is why we're talking dynasty instead of redraft. So I'm okay picking him at the turn here and saying, you know what, if you have the luxury of waiting on a guy that could be a potential superstar player, especially if Caleb Williams steps up, I'm willing to take that bet with Luther Burden there. Another one that was probably the worst kept secret in the NFL was that the Colts needed a tight end, any tight end to help them because they haven't gotten good production out of those guys. You get Tyler Warren going to the Indianapolis Colts. And then, Jake, the question becomes, all right, if you're looking at the 1-2 turn here in your dynasty mock drafts, rookie drafts, whatever it is, are you willing to bet that Tyler Warren is so talented that it doesn't matter if Anthony Richardson is throwing him the ball?
I'm going to choose to look at it through a different lens because that bums me out. That question absolutely bums me out, and I refuse to answer it. I will look at it from this perspective, though. I'm going to say Anthony Richardson's odds of succeeding, as much as I would like him to. I would like Anthony Richardson to succeed in the NFL. I want him to play for many years. I do think that we've seen enough at this point to say that that's certainly no guarantee. Now, Daniel Jones is the one who's waiting in the wings this year, but it's just as likely that come 2026, we have a brand new face of the quarterback room there in Indy. So again, I'm not looking at Tyler Warren and saying, rookie year, I'm, signed up for redraft with you. I'm not. But year 2, year 3 breakout for him with a, let's just say a more focused quarterback in terms of like how he's going to target the middle and under parts of the field, then I'm there. I'm there with Warren.
And if it's a new quarterback, then I'm assuming, Jake, it's a whole new coaching staff coming in, because that's another team that's just completely on the hot seat even before going into training camp. It's got to be them as well for the Colts. So it's unfortunate, and I do agree with you. Like, you think that he's going to have this full-time role and you hope for that, but the limited pass game efficiency that you could get from a potential Anthony Richardson season makes me a little bit less excited about him. So you can look at him more borderline tight end 1 for 2025. And then you just hope again that the talent outweighs everything else around him. Because I do think he is a win now player. He's a player that can help a team, begin to win now. But when you have a quarterback that can't, complete 50% of his passes, Jake, it's just, what are we going to do with Anthony Richardson? Maybe this is the year, Jake. Maybe it's finally going to happen.
Maybe Tyler Warren is the piece that he's been waiting on to unlock that potential. And I do have to call out for the Colts, it's been a lot of years of just throwing a literal dart into the middle of that tight end room and hoping that you hit the right one. There normally isn't a right one to hit. I don't think since Jack Doyle, there's been a reasonable tight end option for fantasy purposes in Indy, but they've also never spent this level of draft capital on a guy before. So that is still very meaningful, and they have an idea with them. We just got to be patient.
All right, 202 pick here, Kaleb Johnson going off the board here in this rookie mock draft. And this was, again, another one where we said, all right, we know that they're going to add to this backfield, the Pittsburgh Steelers are, because you have Najee Harris going away here, Jake. You only have Jaylen Warren, who, for what it's worth, I do like Jaylen Warren. I think he is still going to be involved in this backfield. So this feels like a pretty good spot with Kaleb Johnson, because it just, again, doesn't feel like he's going to run away with this backfield necessarily, but he'll get good work to give you production right away.
Yeah, I love the volume expectation alone for Johnson. I mean, yes, again, love Jaylen Warren as well. I do think he's certainly the more exciting guy. I don't think that is anywhere close to a 300 touch type of running back. Pittsburgh knew that. That's why they brought in somebody like Kaleb Johnson. What worries me for, again, the short term, this is Dynasty, but with running backs especially, still good to focus on what are you going to do 2 to 3 years as sort of that window. Yeah. I worry about the touchdowns this year a lot for him because we don't know what the quarterback situation is. If it's Mason Rudolph leading this team with, a very confusing wideout group right now as well, I worry that we're going to see 3-4 touchdowns for Johnson, and that's not going to get it done in these fantasy streets. Now, if they do happen to sign some mysterious other quarterback that happens to be floating around out there, maybe in a dark room somewhere, then from a touchdown perspective, we might be a little better off. But still, in a 2 to 3 year window, I like them.
Yeah, and I'm someone that believes that it's going to be Aaron Rodgers eventually, right? Or else they would have done a little bit more. That's at least what Jake, I say holding out hope, but I'm really not hoping that happens. But it is probably going to happen. He just likes to be in the conversation. Look, we're doing exactly what he wants and talking about him on April 30th. So I'm with you there. I will say the fantasy life projections for Kaleb Johnson aren't bad at all. I mean, it seems like he does give you this low end, even mid-range RB2 upside, 953 rushing yards, 6.8 rushing touchdowns in there, with also 74 receiving yards, comes out to 152.6 fantasy points. So we know he's probably going to leapfrog Jaylen Warren over there, but still a solid pick nonetheless going for Kaleb Johnson to the Steelers. Before we continue on here, we're going to hear from our friends Jake over at Bud Light.
Hey, you're not actually allowed to drink in a beer commercial?
Since when?
You gotta wait till it's done. Oh,
5,
4, 3, 2, 1.
Continuing right along here, Jake, I got to know about, I'm calling him your guy because I'm just assuming Matthew Golden and the Packers, that you were just jumping up and down. I don't know if this is the best time, like the best draft to go and get your first wide receiver in the first round since 2002, but they went and did it with Matthew Golden. So I'm really curious if you're kind of bumping him up in your, Dynasty mock draft, if you think that he's going to actually be a playmaker for them in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, the Packers are nothing if not contrarians in that department of when they choose to do something. If you would have heard the stadium erupt, when that draft pick was announced, it was literally like we won a Super Bowl. I'm trying to come down from my own hype that I built up for Matthew Golden after that. And I think I've come to a more reasonable expectation for him, but it's still much higher than I think the average person is seeing right now. Because you look at Green Bay, you just go, it's a crowded wide receiver room. Nobody really stands out. Does Matthew Golden even really stand out amongst these guys? I think that yes, he does. He offers a completely different, versatile skill set than what's there right now. But also, we just have to look at the reality, which is Christian Watson, he's injured, going to miss most of this year, might not see a second contract with the Packers. Romeo Doubs, his contract's coming up this year. He's been very hit or miss. Dontavian Wicks, God love him. He's shown bright on a few plays, but in general, towards the bottom of the barrel in a lot of metrics. So I don't think it's as crowded as what people are seeing right now. It's kind of Jaden Reed, Tucker Kraft, and Matthew Golden. So I'm not saying he's going to be getting 100, 120 targets, but long term, I still think that he could be the guy.
I'm with you on this one. I know people didn't like this pick necessarily, but I think it's a sneaky one that you can look at in Dynasty, especially because there is this, you look at the Packers and you know that they really like to just throw the ball everywhere they can, get all their receivers involved. But when I'm looking at it, like it's Jaden Reed and Matthew Golden. So I know 88 targets and 57 receptions isn't sexy for you the first year, but I just continue to think that he's going to, like you just said, beat out the other guys below him, like the Romeo Doubs, the Dontavian Wickses, when Christian Watson is healthy again. Like it just feels like it'll be Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden. I trust the scheme. I trust this offense a little bit too much, but I really do still love Jordan Love. So I'm kind of betting on all of that to make Matthew Golden a super solid pick for this season for sure. Same thing with Tre Harris. This one's interesting because it felt like this was the bet. I mean, landing spot lottery, Jake, for Tre Harris going over to the Los Angeles Chargers, who were in need of a wide receiver too. And he just plops right in there. He's like, hey, I'm here. I'm good to go. So I don't know if we're going to get necessarily, our projections, 81 targets, 52 receptions. You're still going to get Quentin Johnston involved. Same with Mike Williams, but he really did hit the lottery with landing spot.
It could not have gone better. We said at the top of the show, maybe I shouldn't have been so pessimistic at the top of the show talking about landing spots for some of these guys, because this is one that I was watching very closely. I love Tre Harris before the draft, just as a prospect. I think he can do so many things well, and I think he will turn out to be a quarterback's best friend. Somebody who's also just really good at working their way back towards the ball when, maybe Justin Herbert does find himself in a near sack situation. I think that Harris will be very reliable at that front, more so than Quentin Johnston, certainly, who we know has had a lot of difficulties in that offense. And like you said, Mike Williams, he's up there. He hasn't really stuck around too long for any team. He made his way back here after kind of, checking out some other areas of the country. He got to see some sights, but now he's back with LA and I think maybe more of a confidence man than anything.
Such a kind way to put it, Jake. That's why I love having you on here. We're just too nice. That's what we try to do. I will say, if you want to check out the rest of this Dynasty mock, I'll throw some names out here. But the fifth pick in the second round, Jaden Higgins. Then you go Jack Bash, Cam Scattaboo, Jalen Milroe, Kyle Williams, Jalen Knoll, Tyler Shuck, and then Bayshall Tootin. Before we wrap up here, Jake, with the names I just gave you, any players that you could see maybe sneaking into this second round that weren't mentioned by Jonathan Fuller?
I do think that Pat Bryant, the receiver out of Denver, makes a good amount of sense if you're looking at the back half of the second. Just somebody, he doesn't have the same level of draft capital that we're talking about for all these guys. Again, with Sean Payton, it's kind of like his own internal draft capital, which I feel like you just multiply whatever they actually got by like 4. And that's what we have with Sean Payton. So I'm definitely willing to take a shot on him. There's a handful of other running backs that I could see getting some love as well. I haven't really seen much love for Devin Neal. I kind of feel like that backfield is wide open right now. So I think he'd be worth a shot as well.
All right, I like it. And we'll make sure to talk more about Cam Scadaboo in our next episode, because I can't go a whole show, Jake, without us talking about Cam Scadaboo. But appreciate everyone hanging out with us. This was Dynasty Life, doing that post-draft Dynasty rookie mock that you can find at fantasylife.com from Jonathan Fuller. Jake's is going to be live on Friday, so make sure you check that out as well, fantasylife.com. While you're there, subscribe to that newsletter, 100% free. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time.